given the time, I'm going to start talking anyway, the slides will catch up. So hello, I'm Jo Lewis. I'm here representing very, very many people who were involved in the project to make a mosaic for London Bridge. Kind of the last woman standing, really. The reason I'm up here at all is because I was one of 2 fabrication managers for that phase of the project. But very many people from the London School of Mosaics were involved, including all those BAMM virgins at the back who stood up before. If there were any questions and I can't answer them, then I definitely know there are plenty of people who can. The London Bridge Mosaic was London School of Mosaics' biggest single public realm art project during its existence, and it was a really great embodiment of the objectives of the school. This was in the Articles of Association for the school, so about providing public mosaic art on the one hand and then mosaic education on the other, and it really definitely ticked both of those boxes. It was a very, very long running project. So David Tootill, the founder of the school, it was kind of like a twinkle in his eye, I'm sure, probably 15 years ago, but certainly started working it out in earnest in around 2016 onwards. He lived near the London Bridge site, and while that station was undergoing a massive redevelopment programme, you could just see him going, there's going to be a wall there somewhere and I'm having it. So he started working with Network Rail and the station managers very early doors to try and identify a site, Alex, to get that locked in first, and he duly did that. And the London Bridge Station is in a really great position in London. It's right on the river, close to some very iconic landmarks from London, and it was just a huge redevelopment, basically at the bottom of the Shard. So this is a close-up. It looks really weird, actually. Now it's this big, but it's basically on the station kind of forecourt, where if you get a bus to the station, you get off the bus, you walk across to the entrance of the station, and the mosaic is on the retaining wall to stop there being terrorist activity. But very many people walk past that every day. David was fond of quoting 2.1 million people per year versus 7 million people going to the National Gallery every year. I have no way of verifying those numbers, but they sound pretty good, don't they? So that was the beginning, and then David spent a lot of time rustling up funding to make something happen. Got funding from a range of different places. Not all of that was in place when we started actually making it, but by 2021 he thought he'd got enough money to be able to kind of launch a competitive brief for an artist to come and do a design on the theme of diversity and inclusion. So many similarities actually with Alex's project as well. The winner of that project is Adam Nathaniel Furman. I'm going to actually read a little bit from his Wikipedia page to describe who they are. So a British artist, designer, writer and academic who specialises in work characterised by bright colours, bold patterns and ornament of Brazilian, Japanese and Jewish heritage. The other really exciting thing from our point of view about Adam is that they were really, really genuinely passionate about mosaic, and I can remember the first time that they came to the school and talked about how thrilled they were to get the commission because of memories from childhood of being really excited by the Paolozzi mosaics at Tottenham Court Road, and as a very proud member of the queer community, talking about how important Fitzrovia Chapel and the beautiful mosaics there were to them and all of their friends. So it really felt like when they got to the brief, they really, really wanted to understand how mosaic worked. Adam's work spans lots of other things. So these are just some examples. I'll just take you through. Kind of top left was I think called Proud Little Pyramid, and was the result of a residency at King's Cross in 2021. Some people here might recognise the second one, which is called Bristol Quilt, which is a large format ceramic tiles in an underpass in Bristol. The third one is an installation in Paddington. And then on the bottom row we have what is a really beautiful funerary monument for their grandmother's grave, I think. And then alongside that, the globule. So if anybody follows Adam on social media, they post a lot about these. They featured in Barbie, are quite expensive and ripped off a lot by Chinese manufacturers. So they're always trying to kind of lock down all these kind of fake globules. And then there are some ITV idents, and these ceramic colonnades are in Croydon. So Adam had never done any mosaic work before, but a lot of work in ceramic. And in kind of completing the design, David, and then by this time Sylvie Jacoby, who'd become the director of the school by 2021, set a brief with a building block of 21mm square units to represent, you know, a 20mm tile and a bit of grout on kind of two sides as a repeating unit, to try and minimise the amount of cutting that many volunteers would have to do to kind of fabricate the mosaic, and both to make it faster than 1 centimetre tesserae, but also to enable more people of differing abilities to be able to participate without having to handle the tools. And Adam had originally trained as an architect, and so it was absolutely fantastic working with them. And I think if I was kind of going to pull out lessons learned, it would be, if you're going to have a designer, make your designer actually also be an architect, because that was absolutely brilliant, the way in which the designs arrived with us, and definitely minimised the amount of cutting. So this is what was submitted in the competition. And the kind of the narrative that went alongside that from Adam was to really look at the local context. So London Bridge as a place that had both a diverse community living around and near it today, but also historically that having also been true, because it was a place for kind of trade and movement, mainly on the river, but then increasingly over time through the station as well. And then the flows of people in and out of that specific location every day, whether it's commuters or tourists, meaning that there were just, you know, lots and lots of flows of people. So they got this idea of in a river, 1,000 streams. So lots and lots of different things happening inside kind of one hole. And the name got a bit mangled over time. Then they decided it was too long and it should just be 1,000 streams. And none of us really know anymore what it's called, but it's got something to do with water. So this is how the design landed, and each line is basically 21 mil, it's one tile wide, and they have these flows going through. It's deliberately non-representational, so that people don't argue about who's in and who's out in that kind of record of history, and so the people kind of seeing it can impose their own interpretations. They saw it as being unity in a very broad colour spectrum, so I think that we have 28 colours in there. That's what they think. They don't know about all the stock issues we had. There might be a few more than that along the way. But they never appear in quite exactly the same combinations throughout the length of the wall, which I probably forgot to mention. So it was 57 metres long, the wall, 76 square metres in total. And the wall, as you can see there, goes round a bend. It's behind the design, it's comprised of kind of 50 separate concrete slabs that are kind of like slapped up against each other with a few expansion joints along the way. But no two panels are the same dimensions. And most of the panels do not have right angles in the corners. So that both the tops and the bottoms go at different angles. Some of them were like that, some of them were like that, some of them were like that. And they were different widths and different heights. So one of the very important jobs was to get very, very precise measurements of that wall and then have Adam reflect that in their design. The other thing that they strove for in the design was that it be really rich and complicated, so that people who were going to be passing it every day, because let's be honest, those 2.1 million people, is it actually more like, you know, 200,000 people doing it every day, twice a day, needed to be able to still find novelty and new things to look at every time they walk past it. So I thought I'd show you a little bit more detail of how that kind of transpired in real life. So what we've got here, the top image is what I think of as the left-hand end of the wall, and the bottom image is the right-hand end, and you can see the ends actually on both sides. So at the top side, you're kind of at the bottom of the shard, and so what you see is that the design is quite geometric, it's quite spiky, and there's more colder colours at that end of the wall. And then gradually across the length of it, and you can't get it all in one picture, well, not unless you're super sophisticated as a photographer, the design kind of like loosens out a bit, like knickers that have lost their elastic, and it gets into much more kind of flowing lines at the end that is closest to where the river starts as well. So you get a different feel depending on which end of the wall you're standing at, and a different kind of spectrum. And when you look at just little individual sections, different people see different things. So in this one, variously, the London Eye, bits of upholstery from Transport for London, then gears, pistons, train sidings, many other things I'm sure from your own points of view as well. Hazard warning signs, space invaders, tube maps, whatever takes your fancy really, and I think that was the kind of the point. We've all got our favourite bits, and you know, again, I think something that I know Tessa Hunkin has said before, but we definitely found to be true in this project, is one of the advantages in theory of this like non-repeating pattern is that everybody who contributed to making bits of it can go to the wall and identify which bits they were involved in making. In practice, it's actually really hard to remember. I don't know if anybody agrees with that at the back, but I'm a bit like, yeah, no real idea which bits I did. So that was kind of, I mean, I'm showing you pictures of the real mosaic, but by way of explaining the design. By the time we got onto fabrication, which is where I first became involved, we're into kind of 2022. Most of the fabrication was done on site at the London School of Mosaic, but we also did quite a large number of schools workshops for schools local to London Bridge at the train station. So it was mad because we had this kind of, we were outside but under the train platforms with loads and loads of commuters going past. Can't believe any of the teachers managed to get their risk assessments over the line with their head teachers. And every 2 minutes a train would rumble over and be so loud that nobody could hear anything. But I think it must have been a really exciting and different day out for the kids. And of course, for them, we would find sections where there was lots and lots of straight lines so that we didn't need tools and they could just stick direct onto the paper. It was a big kind of logistical exercise translating the design onto paper. We did it in indirect method onto brown paper. And Suzanne and I remember right at the beginning, we'd offered David some of our time to help fabricate a sample panel. And as with everything at the school, when you're using people's time for free, then you find the thing that you need to spend the least money on as a method for doing things because you're spending people's time instead of money. So the initial idea was that we would grid up. Absolutely not, because with that level of precision to save on the cutting, you just couldn't afford any deviation from the measurements at all. So the idea that we were going to by hand grid up this very kind of very, very detailed and very precise design went by the wayside after around about half a day. So instead, what happened is we took Adam's drawings as they arrived with us on PDF over to the left, and used rapid resizer to reverse them, scale them to the millimeter correct size for printing, and desaturate the colours so that there was enough colour left to be able to kind of guide people, because it was very, very easy to get confused about which line was supposed to be which colour. So that was just to provide enough of a steer that you could then mark up your brown paper with the codes for the colours that needed to be used, and then get cracking on it. But because the panel drawings arrived like that with firm edges according to where these concrete slabs were, of course what we also had to do was refine some edges when we were doing the sectioning, so adding bits on from the next panel across or taking bits away so that we didn't end up with massive vertical grout lines at the edge of each panel. And then installation did not happen on one day. Installation happened in two distinct phases. We did a bit in 2023 and then most of it in 2024. It didn't go entirely to plan on the first installation, and so we've got quite a lot of souvenirs like this, where we had to go back and do repairs. We've not actually arrived at a definitive answer as to what happened, but somehow it's clear that the adhesive stuck to the tile, the grout stuck to the tile and to the adhesive. The adhesive did not stay stuck to the wall. Various possible explanations for that, but I think my personal belief is that we did not do a good enough job. I can't go backwards. The top of the wall has a kind of a slightly sloping bit on it, and I think that we just didn't adequately seal across the top, so rain was just coming in and coming down the back. But we did also change. So it was epoxy for the first install based on recommendation from suppliers. But for the second install, we reverted back to doing it in a nice old-fashioned way, and that seems to have held much better. But yeah, it now feels like all the people who got involved in making the mosaic have now got their own like little bit of Berlin Wall-esque souvenir. So it's all worked out in the end. This is just showing the design as given at the beginning, when it had not been drawn out to scale or anything. That was just an impressionistic design for the brief, and then the actual mosaic. And what I find really surprising is it really looks like the design. So that was a bonus. And really the only thing that changed materially between the two is that we had to kind of tone down Adam's use of pink a bit. So it became more kind of orange and red and less pink and purple, just because of availability of the spectrum. But the pink that we did use, which was the Mexican J80, we couldn't procure enough of the full-size 20mm tiles, and so actually used the 12mm tiles instead. And that was never incorporated into the design, but actually it was one of those like serendipitous things that has, I think, enhanced the overall impression at the end, because it just gives a bit more texture and variety. And because those tiles are 12mm rather than 10, then we had to use 1.5 to be equivalent to a 20mm block. So that meant we had lots of different ways of laying them as well. So sometimes it was basket weave, sometimes it wasn't, sometimes it alternated one way and then another way. So that just added even more kind of variety to the impression of the whole. And what's been really nice since the mosaic has been up is seeing how it's been kind of co-opted by people. So if you are ever up there, people watching in a slightly stalkerish way, then you see children running along the wall, tracing particular lines and following them round the bend, and an awful lot of people taking selfies, which I always think is like a really good sign. Lots of other things kind of came about as well through the project, as well as the mosaic. So David was working hard on gathering oral histories from local people in the area, which have gone into Southwark Archive, and that really did bring out the massive diversity of backgrounds of all the people kind of living in the area today, and Southwark have been really delighted to get those kind of stories of ordinary contemporary people. The school got lots of really positive media coverage, Financial Times, Elle Decoration, Homes and Gardens, BBC on the radio, on the TV, and in some of the kind of like little bits of, when they put lots of bits of video together to intro the news and stuff. So it appears in lots of places. Some artist residencies came out of it, and also we worked with the Shard a bit, and one of the things that came from that partnership was that our students designed, and volunteers on the project submitted designs for the Christmas lights at the Shard. So every year they light up the top, I don't even know how many floors it is, but number of floors, and several of our designs ended up being, and this one's Bridget's, shout out to Bridget who's here today, ended up being up there for Christmas too, so that was really fantastic. And so to finish really, I thought I would come back to the London School of Mosaic again, because it was, as I said, the biggest single public art project during the life of the School of Mosaic, which is now sadly over, but not quite, because it lives on in lots of different ways. So there are actually over 350 other public realm mosaics, mainly in London, but not exclusively in London, as well as lots of private commissions. There are 48 people who went through the diploma programme, and we are still working on trying to land a version of the diploma, hopefully, fingers crossed, at the City and Guilds School of Art, which is just south of the river in London. And if we can do that, I think that will be a really great long-term home for this really important but sometimes undervalued craft, where it can sit alongside other specialisms that perhaps typically had a bit more kudos than we have in the past. Got very, very, very many people who have attended short courses, and we've managed to have the Working Men's College take on our kind of short course repertoire, and some of our tutors, and so they're going to kickstart the classes there again from January. And some of our tutors have also got work expanding a Mosaic kind of repertoire at City Lit College as well, which is fantastic. The building where the Mosaic School was operating had expanded into having 50 artists housed in studios and a dozen charities housed in a community hub as well. And it was that expansion that had actually put quite a lot of the pressure onto the school from a financial point of view. But the good news is that, and it's just an amazing kind of, hubbub of activity there. And earlier in the summer, it was not at all clear whether all of that would be able to continue, but we've managed to find another organisation to take on the running of the building, so all of that continues as well, which was incredibly close to both David and Sylvie's hearts, and they put so much energy into making that happen, so that's really fantastic. Our employed team and freelancers have been able to take forward any of the kind of project and commission and partnership stuff that was ongoing. And last but not least, we still have a community of mosaic lovers who we've been really, really encouraging to join BAMM. So while you think that it's the new website that has generated the increase in membership, I know. But I definitely know that a number of people from the school community have joined BAMM, and I really do hope that we can make stuff happen. Actually, not just in London, because people came from quite far away to come to the school as well. So hopefully across the whole of the south, east, and west. And I certainly look forward to having more time going forward to spend time with you as a BAMM community. So thank you very much.